going to post a video on punishment and rewards. I remember when my kids were very small, I spent an awful lot of time trying to put together these behaviour charts to encourage my children to do things. And we used to use things like, you know, you've lost your screen time, no YouTube time, trying to take things away if they didn't do the behaviours that we wanted them to do. And we very quickly learned that this didn't work. And I remember being very, very confused, why I'd watch other parents implementing these strategies with their kids fantastically, but it just didn't work. And most of these parents didn't believe that it didn't work. And I remember being out on a day trip in London with some friends, and my 2-year-old at the time had wandered off to the other side of the South Bank Centre, and her older twins were kind of looking after him, and they were gone for ages, and she went up to them and she said to the twins, "Can't you," she was asking them to come back, and they said, "Oh, we can't, he won't follow us." And she goes, "But won't he just follow you if you walk away?" And they were like, "No." And she was surprised at this, and she was like, "Don't they just eat if you tell them to? Don't they just sit down at the table when you tell them?" I was like, "No, they don't do any of those things." If I say, "Oh, we're leaving now, we'll leave you behind," they'll be like, "Oh, okay, fine," and they'll be quite happy to stay on their own. They're not persuadable in that very kind of stereotypical, if you threaten to leave a child behind, they'll just follow you. If you walk off, they'll just follow you. So these differences are things that I noticed from a very, very young age. As soon as they could walk, as soon as they could assert their own needs, it was very obvious that they were not persuadable. And I remember posting this meme about my daughter, and it was something about why raise a lady when you can raise a warrior. And it came up on my Facebook feed, 6-7 years later. And I reposted it saying, well, that backfired a little. But in reality, I had nothing to do with it. The reason, if I did raise her a warrior, is because I was a warrior. And it's the only, and I say warrior, not worrier, a fierce fighter. And I raise her that way because it's the only way I know how to raise her, because that's who I am, and that is who she is. And, we think that children are mouldable a lot of the time. Old school parenting says that you can mould your child to be who you want them to be. And yes, you can, for example, with things like boarding school environments, you can mould people to be who you want them to be, but it's at an enormous detriment to their sense of self-worth, to their ability to recognise their own needs, to them knowing their own core. It can be deeply traumatic to crush people's spirit in that way. Boarding school survival is a whole other subject, but I'm highlighting this to demonstrate that your child is who they are from birth. There's not a huge amount you can do to influence that in a positive way. Yes, you can teach them. We all have traits, and these traits can appear positive or negative. So yes, we can teach them things like compassion, how the importance of certain behaviours, and kindness, and the importance of making amends when you've hurt someone. But who they are, their traits, how they go about doing those things, that's all ingrained, and unlikely to change a significant amount from my own experience of being a therapist and also a parent. So coming back to this idea of punishments and rewards, the kids' school was saying to me, "How can we persuade your children to be in school?" And I'm like, you can't. What I can do is get them through the door, but you have to provide an environment that is stimulating enough, that doesn't overwhelm, that feels safe, so that they want to stay, because they want to learn, they want to be at school, and they will be at school if you provide an environment that works for all children, not just neurotypical children, that works for neurodivergent children. And no amount of persuasion, either way, with threats or rewards, is going to make a blind bit of difference. And as my kids have got older, I've been able to ask them. So I know for myself why these things don't work, and it's basically because I don't like being told what to do. Whether it's a reward or a punishment, I don't like being told what to do. I would rather come to that conclusion myself, having done my own research and made my own assessments. I hate marketing. I hate advertising. The more you market to me, the less likely I am to have any interest whatsoever in your product. Fashionable clothes I refuse to wear on principle because I feel like I'm being told what to wear. So I may pick them up, a number of years later, but not when they're at the height of fashion. And so it is with punishments and rewards for kids. The punishment feels enormously stressful Because if your child isn't doing something, you have to take the assumption, and I'm talking here about neurodivergent children. If your child is not capable of doing something, they won't do it. And the more you try and threaten them with taking away things that they love, the more stressed they're going to feel, the more overwhelmed they're going to feel, and even less likely to be able to achieve the task you want them to achieve. And unfortunately, it is the same with rewards. You can say to your child, right, if you do all this work, or if you behave in a certain way, I will give you a special treat at the weekend. And the pressure of potentially failing and not getting that retreat is as bad as if you're threatening them with a punishment. It's going to make them less likely to be able to do the task that you want them to do. So, many parents have said to me, well, how do you persuade such children? And I'm like, well, you don't. You present them with the information about why doing this task is important. You give them the pros and cons. You tell them the natural consequences of what happens if they don't do this task. And honestly, if the natural consequences aren't that bad, they're probably not going to do the task. If the natural consequences are serious, they're going to see that it's really important to do this. So, it even goes to things like hand-holding when crossing the road. When my daughter was little, she hated holding my hand, and I was taught you have to hold a child's hand when they cross the road. But if I held her hand, she'd likely have a meltdown and run away from me whilst trying to cross the road. So instead, I taught her that she had to walk next to me. She had to stay near me. So if there was something dangerous, I would be able to grab her and pull her out of harm's way. And so that was the agreement we had. And for us, that was the safest way to navigate road crossings. And I taught her about, that her brain, I think the brain, I can't remember the age, I've got in my head that it's 12 years old, that depth perception isn't fully developed until you're a lot older, like quite significantly older, and I think it's around the age of 12. And so the ability to judge the speed of an oncoming car isn't fully developed until you're quite an older child. And so with that knowledge and information about the brain and its functioning and development, my kids were able to understand that they're not capable of judging the speed of a moving car, and therefore they have to go when I tell them it's safe, not when they think it's safe. And so equipping with information and facts can be really helpful, and with the natural consequences of stuff. And you will find that you have to pick your battles. You have to decide what really matters in life. You have to decide what's really important. Is it really important that your child is in school every day, or can you let them take a break? Do they really have to do all their homework in one sitting, or can they take it in short bursts, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there? And I remember during the first lockdown in the UK when we were doing homeschooling, not an activity I particularly enjoy, but it would take 2 hours to do a 5-minute activity sometimes. And for me, it was enormously frustrating because I just wanted to get the blooming thing over and done with, just get it out of the way and move on to the next activity in our day. But that didn't work, and I had to accept that things had to go their way. Why should it go my way? Was that just me trying to exert my own control over how the day went? And was I failing to see the needs of my child, their very limited concentration span, in what was actually, a very anxiety-inducing situation where all the schools suddenly shut down and there were no playgrounds open, they couldn't see any of their friends. So sometimes we have to cut children some slack and recognise that it shouldn't become a battleground between parent and child. It shouldn't be about the child having to do things the parent's way. And that can be quite a bitter pill to swallow if you've been brought up differently. So I hope this has been helpful, just highlighting some of the challenges with punishments and rewards, and maybe recognising that they may not work for your child. And you may actually be adding to their stress, even if you're giving a reward, just to think about it differently and how it may impact your child. I hope that this talk has been helpful. As always, if there's something that you want to know more about, just drop me a message, or if you want to share anything, I'm always happy to hear your own experiences. And if you found it helpful, please do share it with other people, or please do consider subscribing. I hope you have a great week, everyone. Take care.